Today's scripture reading is Acts 10:34 through 43, and it can be found on the overhead screen behind me. And let us pray. Lord, open our hearts and minds by the power of your Holy Spirit, that we may hear your word with joy. Amen. Hear the word of the Lord. Gentiles, hear the good news. Then Peter began to speak to them. Truly understand that God shows so partially, but in the very nation, anyone who fears him and does what is right is acceptable to him. You know the message he sent to the people of Israel, preaching peace by Jesus Christ. He is Lord of all. That message spread throughout Judea, beginning in Galilee after the baptism that John announced, how God had anointed Jesus of Nazareth, healing all who were oppressed by the devil, for God was with him. We are witnesses to all that he did, both in Judea and Jerusalem. They put him to death by hanging him on a tree, but God raised him on the third day and allowed him to appear not to all the people, but to us who were chosen, God as witnesses, and who ate and drank with him after he rose from the dead. He commanded us to preach to the people and to testify that he is the one ordained by God as judge of the living and the dead. All the prophets testify about him, that everyone who believes in him receives forgiveness of his sin through his name. This is the word of the Lord.
Good morning, Covenant Church.
Good morning.
It's a real joy to be back here with you. I have been here several times, but it's been a while. And it's just lovely to be back. I feel so at home and so warmly welcome. I'm going to share a scripture in just a second, but, we'll share it now. Sure, whatever. We're easy. So, Micah 6, no, I can't read it, 6 through 8, because I don't have it. So, you're going to put it up? Okay. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has told you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? This is the word of the Lord. So I've titled my sermon, Always the Basics. Over and over again, God reminds us of the basics of the big picture. And actually, God is such a God of such a big picture that we barely understand, as much as we've studied the earth and physics and science, and as much as we've discovered tools to study the earth, we still don't even understand the earth, much less God. So it's complicated trying to understand how to be humans in this world where God is so great and the world itself is so amazing and complicated. We try to figure it out, and we try to figure out, how can we be with God? How can we please God? How can we relate to God? And we try to make it easier. Surely God really didn't mean that. Surely God had this in mind. Surely God, will be okay if we just do this much. And this has been going on since time immemorial, humans trying to figure out, how can we relate to God? God is so great. How can we, and we know how limited we are, we feel how limited we are, how can we relate to God? So in the story of the Old Testament, the saga of the Old Testament shows us the people of Israel trying to wriggle out over and over again of what God seems to have told them. So God told Abraham he would have a wonderful family, but he had no kids. So he figures out, oh, I'll have a child by my slave girl. That must be what God had in mind. Or we have Jacob, who stole his brother's blessing. Like, what was he thinking? How was that going to go well with what God had promised? Later, the prophets of Israel couldn't believe that God would really allow the Assyrians and the Babylonians to conquer them, and so they kept reassuring the kings of Israel, no, it's okay, even though you're worshiping other gods, God's going to be okay with that. Somehow, they were hopeful. In Jesus' time, the Pharisees had taken the law and they focused on the little picture, all the little tiny details of the law, until the law had become a huge burden for everybody. Because the big picture is just too hard for us. We still do it today. We splinter into denominations over theology, over interpretations of the Bible. What does it mean? What does it not mean? What does it really say? What doesn't it say? So we are God's beloved humans, but we have a heck of a time holding on to the basics. Micah brings us a word from the God of the basics. The context, as you heard, was a description of the kind of ceremonial sacrifices that were required of the people. And Micah is talking to them about, is this really, have you lost? Do you not get the meaning of these sacrifices? What God is really about is this basic thing of love. Micah says, no, these sacrifices are not it. The basics are loving justice, loving mercy, loving kindness, doing justice, walking humbly with God. It's very basic. It sounds so simple, but we know that we don't do it well, so we try to skitter away. Jesus summed up the basics at one point, as we heard this morning. Love God with all your heart, love your neighbor as yourself. And what did the Pharisee who asked him the question do? Tried to wiggle out, oh yeah, who is my neighbor? Well, God closed that door real quickly with the story of the Good Samaritan. Your neighbor may be your enemy. There's no one who's excluded from being your neighbor. Back again to the basics. So the U.S. Church, through recent history, has had this big debate about whether God is asking us for spiritual response or whether we are to show mercy and justice in physical ways, in earthly ways. Back and forth. Is it justice, or is it, is it saving souls, or is it responding to people's physical needs? Back and forth, debate. Our partner church in Ethiopia doesn't bother with that debate. It has a vision statement that keeps things in balance. They say that their denomination offers the whole gospel for the whole person. The church itself, the spiritual side, is growing rapidly. They have a development arm of the church, and they are involved in reforestation, capping springs, drilling wells for clean drinking water, kindergartens, orchards, vegetable nurseries, clinics, literacy programs, and the empowerment of women. The whole gospel for the whole person. The last 2 decades, I've had a wonderful job of being a conduit, being a bridge from the Ethiopian Partner Church to churches here in the United States. I've been traveling back and forth, and because in this way that often happens, because I keep showing up in Ethiopia, a new ministry has come to me. I didn't go looking for it, but it came to me. So I grew up in Maji, in deep southern Ethiopia. This was our family on our first trip. We're about to board Ethiopian Airlines. I'm the oldest, and I was not quite 6. Mom and Dad were assigned to this remote mission station way down in the southwest corner of Ethiopia. We lived for many years in a grass-roofed home, like the people around. You see Main Street, Maji on the right, and you see Mom and Dad in front of our home on the left. Not all that much difference. And I had a wonderful, wonderful childhood in Maji. The beauty of Maji, even as a child, stunned me and my sisters. We would run down to this waterfall with my dad. We would run over the mountains. We would take picnics everywhere. We played imagination games. We just had a wonderful, wonderful childhood in Maji. However, even, I'm not going to say exactly how many years later it is, but it's a long time later, and still, the people in Maji live in the dark when the sun goes down. And you can see all over Africa, the majority of Africans live in the dark when the sun goes down. It's one thing to get all romantic about going off the grid when all around you, the grocery stores and the banks and the schools and the traffic lights have electricity. It's another thing to be in the dark all over the place, all around you, all the time. In 2017, I was in Maji meeting with Presbyterian leaders about other projects when an older man spoke up. And he said that a development agency had given their grade school a solar system to put lights in the library, in the office of the school. But he said, really, the people who are suffering here are the young women, because there is no electricity, and when they deliver at night, they're delivering in the dark. They have a simple clinic. Women don't give birth at home anymore. They come into the clinic. The nurse and the midwife hold a flashlight. And if both are needed for the delivery, they hold the flashlight in their mouths. Can you help us by bringing us a solar system for our delivery room? Well, I came back to the United States and I only told that story to a couple of people, and I had donations for the solar system. I found a solar provider in Addis Ababa, the capital city. I'm from Oregon and we say "Wa local." I don't know if we say that here, I don't know. So I found a solar provider in Addis Ababa. I rented a vehicle. I took the system and the technician down to Maji, a three-day road trip one way. And the technician installed the solar panel on the roof of the clinic. It ran 4 lights to the office, to the examining room, to the delivery room, and then 1 more light because, as all of you women will understand, you don't want to walk to the clinic several miles when you're in labor, right? So you walk to the clinic several miles when you're 8.5 months pregnant. And you wait there in a hostel for delivery. So when this was going on, there were 5 women in the local clinic hostel watching this operation. Now remember, nobody has seen electricity before, so we kind of tried to explain to them what was going on, all these orange wires being strung and this thing on the roof. But I'm sure they absolutely didn't get it until the light went on. I was all excited thinking some of these women are going to give birth with light for the first time ever in Maji. Well, that night, the men came back to supper at the guest house and reported to me that these women were just gobsmacked, amazed. And one of the things that they were saying was, can these things be put on grass-roofed houses? Can you imagine what it would do for my life if I had one of these? If I had a light in my home to take care of my children at night? If I had a light outside to take care of the cattle at night? women's work. There are so many ways I suddenly realized that the lack of electricity hits women's lives even harder than the lives of men. The people of Maji feel abandoned. At this point, many years after development began to come to Ethiopia, they are still 90 miles, 90 gravel African miles off after the end of the last electric pole of the Ethiopian grid. But they're so far away, and it takes so long to get down there, that there are no other nonprofit organizations working there. I'm kind of hit. And people have said to me, because we're not starving, nobody wants to help us. So I have started a nonprofit. Everybody warned me not to, but I just had to. I've talked to the county administration, to the city fathers of Maji town, to the leaders of the Maji Presbytery about bringing power to Maji. This is going to make a difference in people's homes. I showed the kids a picture of these little girls. Children are very susceptible to bronchial and eye infections because they and the women are the ones that are inside the smoky houses burning fuel not only for cooking but then for light at night. The young people have no way to do homework. These two boys, when I talked to them about their school, they said they earn money carrying water to buy flashlights and to keep themselves in batteries to do their homework. And they have dreams of going to the university, but they'll be competing against all those city kids that do have light at night. Since January, the Maji Development Coalition has distributed over 150 of these solar home systems, some going onto tin roofs, some going on to grass-roofed homes. And my goal was to start with bringing power to this remote district, but as Kevin said, Chris Bounds and I were there last October and learned, they came to us and said, again, can you help us? The pump has burnt out in the well, and our people are back to drinking dirty water from springs that get trampled, as you see up in the left-hand corner, or from the rivers, which are not clean. And can you help us get a pump? So Chris came back and inspired you. Your hearts went out. We ordered a pump. We added extra money so that it would come by air freight, not by sea freight, and get there as soon as it could. So in January, I was back there and watching this installation. As you see on the bottom, one of the technicians up on the bottom of a huge tripod, they were dropping 180, it was a 190-foot deep well, and dropping 18-foot poles one at a time, halfway and then the other half, halfway and the other half, until we got it done. Well, we had to run back to Addis. So the minute water gushed back out of that well, and you saw the pictures of people hugging each other and laughing and rejoicing and celebrating, I had to leave. So I didn't actually get any pictures of women drawing clean water until later. When I came back into town in April, one of the friends I was traveling with said to me, so does everybody in town know you? And I just kind of laughed and said, oh yeah, my face is on all the billboards. Well, you know, there are no billboards. So I was just like, oh. But we drove into town and the women were drawing water at one of the water taps. And I needed a picture so I could show you all, you know, how the women now have clean water and how happy they are about it. So I stopped the driver and I jumped out of the car, and the women turned and looked and just burst into thanks and greetings and welcome and joy, you know. I was like, okay, my face is on all the billboards. But I got a picture, and they were just all gathering around and saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then one young woman came over, and she put her hands on her heart, and she said it first in Amharic, and then she tried out her English a little bit shyly, and she said, "We love you." So I'm here with you today to say that you is plural. You know, I'm the face that they see, and they say thank you to me, but whenever I have a chance, I tell them, this is not me. I'm not Bill Gates coming and, sharing my wealth. This is the resources and the love distilled into resources that can be shared halfway around the world of many people. I go to people in the United States and I tell the story of Machi, and people open their hearts and are willing to share with you. And so when they say thank you to me, in my heart, and as much as possible, I share with them. I'm only the conduit. I'm the one who shows up. But many, many people are hearing your story and are caring. You are not alone. So there are many needs in Maji. They've come to me about the deforestation problem. They've come to me about the hospital, which has been built by the Ministry of Health, but being in a silo, the Ministry of Health built a hospital, and without electricity, how do you open a hospital? So there it sits, just a shell. We're inspired and working toward and have some ideas of how to raise money to solarize this hospital and get it open. Sometimes people gush to me about the amazing things I do or dream of doing in Ethiopia. My accountant in Addis Ababa said to me, I've worked with nonprofits that are much bigger than you and are not accomplishing as much as you're accomplishing. I just feel very humble about all this. I was raised to work in Ethiopia. It's so much easier for me to do than it would be for most of you to do. We all get called to do things. We all get called to do things that challenge us, and different things challenge different ones of us in different ways. It doesn't matter how exotic or grand the things are that God calls us to do. The question is, are we going to respond? Are we going to respond with a yes, even if we are a little bit intimidated? Or are we going to say, it's just little old me, I couldn't accomplish anything? That's the real question. Do we run away and hide? Do we say yes? Do we major in the minors of theology? Or do we go back to the basics of what God said to us is what he really requires of us? That love of God, that love of our neighbor, that mercy, that kindness, that justice. We were talking one day in Maji with the local Presbyterian people, and one of them said to me, your father brought the light of the gospel to Maji. The church now is growing very rapidly, but he said, now his daughter is bringing the light of electricity to us. I feel the burden of that, and I just have to step forward and trust that if God has called me to do this, God will bring me to the partners that will help me. And already that has happened in a big way here in Covenant, and it has happened in other churches, in other places, in a very moving and exciting way. So I'm delighted to be here among you as partners in this. It's a big challenge I haven't even imagined yet. So I need your prayers as well as the resources that you have shared. And I hope together that we can be people who represent the whole gospel for the whole people of Machi, both people next door to us here as you minister among your neighbors in Boise, as you minister to neighbors in Papua New Guinea, and as we minister together to our neighbors in Ethiopia. So, back to the basics. What does the Lord require of us? To to do mercy, kindness in some versions, to do justice, and to walk humbly with God. May we all have the strength and vision to do